tomorrow. Ted Nugent will be my guest. And that's fitting, too, coming off of the Aerosmith Throwdown we're about to do, because Nugent and Aerosmith toured a ton together back in the 70s. Okay, let's get to it. Throwdown time. What's your pick? Rocks or toys? Our first caller, we'll go to Canada for our first caller, where Aerosmith recorded some of their later albums, Vancouver to be exact. And here's Greg joining us right now. What's going on, Greg? What's your pick?
Hey, Eddie, you know what? It's awesome to talk to you. You know what? It's like you ask a parent who's their favorite child. I got to go quickly with Toys in the Attic. First time I saw them was down at the Kingdome on the Toys in the Attic tour with a whole bunch of bands. It was just absolutely amazing. You know what? Rocks is so close to that. Just amazing. And I did get to see them do their residency down in Vegas on my 60th birthday on April the 8th, which was absolutely mind-boggling. Of course, Joey was there as well. It was them all intact, and it was absolutely amazing. Got to bump into Steven Tyler and Brad Whitford walking through Gastown the day of a show about 5 years ago, pulled my car over, ran out. They were walking with just a couple of big guys. I talked to Steven for about 5 minutes. He was absolutely great to talk to. I wish to God I'd spent a couple more minutes talking to Brad Whitford, who's got to be, outside of those that really know him, one of the most incredible guitar players. I mean, playing second fiddle to Joe Perry is got to be a tough gig, but he is, as you know it, so many people know it. He's just the most incredible guitar player. But both of those albums, I, like so many millions of other people, grew up on, and it's, I think, only Toys in the Attic, only because for a lot of people, it really brought Aerosmith to light, which probably helped sales of Rocks and why the big following. But Rocks, man, every song is just, I can't turn it up loud enough to hear them. It's just great.
Yeah. Greg, I got a ton of calls, so I got to move. Thank you. I don't know what Gastown is. Maybe that's an area near Greg, but that's amazingly cool to run into Steven Tyler walking down through whatever Gastown is. Greg brings up a point there, though. Without question, Toys in the Attic is the record that broke the band. I mean, first record, remember, Dream On is on the first record, but it was not a hit from the first record. It didn't become a hit till a couple years later when it was re-released. And then you had Get Your Wings, which has some great stuff on it, but was not a massive hit. Toys in the Attic is, without question, the record that broke the band. I mean, it was building up to that point, and then you come with Walk This Way and Sweet Emotion, game over. So there's no question about that, and there's no question which is the bigger, more commercially successful record, as I just gave you the stats. So he's going Toys, but again, it's incredibly, incredibly tough. Great points there made by Greg in Vancouver. Let's stay in Canada. Go to Winnipeg. Here's Alan. Hey, Alan, go ahead.
Okay, Eddie. I'll just go ahead with my pick, but just a quick thing. It's 2 seconds. For your next Throwdown, I'm asking you to consider Rival Sons and Led Zeppelin. So I'm going to go into my thing with Aerosmith.
That's a joke, right?
No, I know Rival Sons is a little bit of a newer band, but I'm just saying. I'm not saying Rival Sons versus Led Zeppelin. I'm saying Rival Sons, two albums, and Led Zeppelin, their 2 albums.
No, that's not. I mean, I love Rival Sons, but that's not even a contest. And the other thing, the thing to do would be Rival Sons versus like Greta Van Fleet. That would make more sense. But I don't know. You can't put Zeppelin against anybody. You couldn't even put Zeppelin against Aerosmith, I don't think. But we can do. We can do 2 versus 4 for Zeppelin or something like that at some point.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like Zeppelin, their 2 albums for like Led Zeppelin 1 or 2, and Rival Sons has like Great West of Valkyrie versus Pressure and Time. That's what I meant, not Led Zeppelin versus Rival Sons. Okay, so anyways, it's Toys in the Attic. It's steep. I was 4 years old when Toys in the Attic came out, and it's just steeped into my childhood. So it just wins over Rocks. But I did listen to Rocks today, and Rocks is heavier, and it's a great album, but just Toys does it for me, and that's it.
All right. Thank you, Alan. So 2 Canadian callers to start us off, and both going Toys. And, of course, I'm logged in for Rocks, so it's 2-1 early on. I'm just looking real quickly. When you think about songs that the band still plays live, when they do play live, as they're about to start up again soon. So on Toys in the Attic, they always do the title track. I've seen them do No More, No More a lot, but it's not a constant. So the constants would be title track, of course, Walk This Way, Sweet Emotion. So there's 3 constants on that. When you look at Rocks, there really isn't a locked constant in every show. Maybe Back in the Saddle would be the closest. They also do Rats in the Cellar a lot. They've opened with that a lot. They've done Last Child a lot. So again, Rocks does not have that clear-cut, massive song, and Toys has 2, which is why it sold double the amount of records. But again, to the hardcore of hardcores like myself and others, not to say you can't be super hardcore and be into and still favor Toys, but I don't know. I'm trying to find the weak link between the two, looking at the track listings, and I don't know. Maybe I discriminate against Toys a little bit just because Walk This Way and Sweet Emotion are so overplayed. I was never a big 10-inch record guy. I never really loved that song. And Uncle Salty, I could take or leave. So there you go. There's why I'm so heavy on Rocks. Uncle Salty, indifferent. Adam's Apple, amazing. Walk This Way, burnt out, overplayed. Big 10-inch record, never huge for me. Sweet Emotion, masterpiece, even though it's overplayed. No More, No More, brilliant. Round and Round, insanely heavy and brilliant. You See Me Crying, super underrated, great Aerosmith ballad. But I can give you 2 or 3 things on that record, which that's where I turn a little bit away from it, right? I just did. When I go down the track listing for Rocks, Back in the Saddle, insane. Last Child, insane. Rats in the Cellar, insane. Combination, amazing. If I had to pick, it's almost impossible for me to say this, but if I had to pick like a song that I would take off Rocks, and my God, you know how I love Joe, so nothing against Joe, but probably Combination is the least great of the 9 songs to me, but it's still amazing. Sick as a Dog, one of my favorites ever. Nobody's Fault, insanely heavy for its time. Get the Let Out. Maybe Get the... it's impossible. I'm like, if I gotta... And then Lickin' a Promise, amazing, one of my favorites ever. Home Tonight, one of the greatest closing ballads ever, which also should have been huge. So again, if I'm looking for like a lean towards Rocks, you just heard it. Maybe there's, if I had to find the tiniest of cracks, maybe I could find 2 or 3 in Toys if I was really pushing, whereas in Rocks, maybe 1 or 2. And by cracks, I don't even know what I'm saying because I love those songs too. It's incredible. Here's Frank in Pennsylvania. Hey, Frank, go ahead.
Thanks for taking my call, Eddie. And just to let you know, it's a shame that metal show went off the air and you can't find anybody else to pick it up. That was the greatest show I ever seen on VH1 Classic.
Oh, thank you, Frank. Well, maybe Epix will pick it up. They're running the Stones documentary. Why don't we get them to pick it up? I'm putting it out there. Somebody call them.
I don't care who picks it up. Somebody pick it up because just real quick, my wife and I used to watch it every week, and we DVR sometimes if we couldn't catch it. It's like, why are we doing this? They used to play the week before episodes all week.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Frank. I appreciate it. I really do. What's your pick on the Throwdown, man?
Rocks, because I think it's a little more melodic than Toys in the Attic. Toys in the Attic to me is more like a good time bar band album. You know what I'm saying? Not that it's bad. I don't mean that. This is a difficult thing. I don't know. You're making these throwdowns more difficult all the time.
Well, that's the whole point. But you're logging in for which one? Rocks?
Rocks, yes. All
right. We'll put Frank down for Rocks in PA. Thank you, Frank. And thanks for watching my show back in the day. I appreciate it. You never know. Here's Dwayne in San Diego. Hey, Dwayne.
Hey, Eddie. So my pick is Rocks for sure. I mean, Joe Perry, he's not like really known for being this great guitar player, but man, he writes some memorable riffs, and that's why everybody loves. That's why all the guitar players love that Rocks, is because it's got memorable riffs on it. But hey, if you'll just indulge me real quick, I got something about Ted Nugent. Uncle Ted wins for the best album title ever. Intensities in 10 Cities.
Yeah.
Best album title ever. And
I'll ask him about that. That's good. I'm making a list. I'm making a list of things I want to talk to him about. We'll have about a half an hour with him tomorrow. But and again, it's all music stuff. So everybody calm down. The people, on the other side of the world that don't like Ted or whatever, freaked out about Ted. Again, anybody knows, anybody comes on this show, we talk rock music. Go ahead. What did you want to say, Dwayne?
Ted's a huge Rolling Stones fan too, because hey, he wrote Death by Misadventure about Brian Jones. So, you know, there you go with that too. So, hey, Rocks all the way. Eddie, let me just share this with you real quick, if you don't mind. I was 10 years old when Rocks came out. I think I was 7 or 8 when I bought my second record with Aerosmith, Get Your Wings, and I bought it at Two Guys.
Two Guys, man. Yeah. Thanks, Dwayne. I got her. Wait, Dwayne, are you from San Diego?
I'm from Baltimore.
Oh, okay.
Originally,
so you're East Coast. There you go. That explains the Two Guys thing, because I don't think they were ever on the West Coast. So
I don't think so either. But yeah, I've wanted to talk to you about Hammerjacks before, and I know somebody talked to you about Hammerjacks. But anyway, brother, thanks. Rocks all the way. And Uncle Ted, Death by Misadventure, greatest album title ever.
I'll make sure I bring it up. That's a good. Well, you said Intensities in 10 Cities. That's the other one. But Two Guys, my gosh. If you were an East Coaster, you might remember Two Guys. It was a department store, and I got tons of records as a kid from there as well. We had them in New Jersey. I think they started in New Jersey. They're long gone, but they used to have the record department in the department store, and my mom, I'd go in there, and she'd be shopping, and as a kid, I'd go over there and flip through the bins and see the displays and try to talk her into buying me a record. And God, great memories. Great stuff, Dwayne. Two Guys. Whew. That's totally an East Coast reference. That's why I knew he was not originally from San Diego. How about we say hello to Kendall in Cleveland? I haven't heard from Kendall in a while. Kendall, what's your pick today?
Hey, Ed. Nice to talk to you. My pick is Rocks. The reason I am picking Rocks, it's just a little bit heavier. It's a little bit dirtier. I actually heard Jack Douglas, the producer of both, in an interview said that one's the Beatles album, one's their Stones album. So I don't know. I like the Stones more than the Beatles. But also, I just checked out the Houston Live 877 on YouTube, man. If anybody forgot to watch it or doesn't know about it, go check it out, because it's pretty much both of these albums are on the set list, and it sounds great. But great to talk to you, man.
You too, Kendall. Thank you. Yeah, man. Thank you for your pick. Thanks for listening as always. Kendall's right. So Aerosmith are putting out a concert a week on YouTube that they are sanctioning, and they're cleaning up old concerts they've shot from their archives and doing some work on the audio and video. Put out a show from 77 a week and a half ago. The one from the 80s went up, and that's from the Pump tour from 89. And what's interesting is the Pump period, which is my favorite of the post-reunion records, the Pump tour, watching some of that, they do Rats in the Cellar and some of that stuff still in 89 when they had those huge hits with the comeback with Love in an Elevator and all that. They're still doing stuff from these records, of course, which they've got to mix in. It's an interesting thing with Aerosmith because there's two schools of fans. There's the older fans who were there in the 70s who bought 9 million copies of Toys in the Attic. And then, of course, the band hit a downturn. And then, unlike any other band, they had this whole other wave, as we all know, in the mid-'80s and into the early 90s with the whole MTV thing and those gargantuan records, Pump, Permanent Vacation, Get a Grip, and all of that. So to this day, when you go see them live, they've got to represent both of those things. I had the incredible opportunity to... I toured with Aerosmith for a few years. For a few shows. Flew on their plane. I mean, crazy stuff. Not going to get into it now because that's not what we're doing today. But I also had the opportunity to intro Aerosmith when I hosted a festival in Brazil about 10 years ago. festival was called Monsters of Rock, and having nothing to do with the cruise, it just, or the old Monsters of Rock tour. But in Brazil, Sao Paulo, they used this name. And the night was 2 nights. One night Slipknot closed, one night Aerosmith closed. And I remember being in the dressing room before we all rode on golf carts to the stage, and I went out and introed them. And it's just stories for days, like Steven Tyler pushing me out on the stage and messing with me before I went out in front of like 80,000 Brazilians, just crazy shit. I got photos of it. And I remember being in their dressing room, and I remember saying to, they were huddled around making their set list for the night. And they know me loving all this 70s stuff. So I like just kind of having some fun. I nudge over and I go, I think Joey Kramer I go, hey, guys, need any suggestions, you know? And I think it was Joey or Tom said to me, yeah, this isn't going to be so much your stuff tonight. And I said, what are you talking about? And they were telling me how in like places like South America, they don't even know the 70s Aerosmith. Like all they know is Dude Looks Like a Lady and Angel and Love in an Elevator and I Don't Want to Miss a Thing. They never were popular outside of the US until the mid 80s stuff. So the set list at that festival was super heavy on that. And that entire show that I hosted, I just saw is on YouTube. And I know they shot me introing them that night. Now, the cut that's on YouTube does not show me doing the intro. But somewhere, and I've never seen it, but somewhere it's a pro shot thing. Somewhere in the archives it exists of me having brought them on that night, which is just, again, I have photos of it, just still blows my mind that I did that. I've done so much with Aerosmith over the decades, it's crazy. I did the launch for their Guitar Hero game. I did the release for Joe Perry's book with him, did the release for Joey Kramer's book with him. Just, I forget about all the stuff. It's just, and it's surreal to me because after Kiss, they were the first band as a kid that I let into my world. So sacred beyond belief. All right. Let me do a break here. How about we do that? Joel, does that make sense? Should we do one?
Yeah, absolutely. We can do a break.
Because our breaks have changed a little bit, as you can tell. And as you can probably tell, it's also good because we have more consistent time without having to take one. So break structure here on Faction Talk is a little different. So there's a little more space here. So let's do one. Let me get one out of the way and grab a drink here. And then we come back. I've got an entire hour for you. Fear not. More. We're just scratching the surface. And I'm sorry if I get diverted and my mind starts firing, but you know how into this I get. Rocks versus toys. Oh, listen to this. Sick as a dog, for God's sake. Crank this up. We'll be right back. On our latest Throwdown, we go to Idaho and welcome Brent with his 2 cents. What do you got, Brent?
Hey, Eddie, man, why are you doing this to me, man?
It's fun, right?
Oh, man, this is so hard. Such a toss-up. So many great classic songs, and my 2 favorite Aerosmith songs are on these records, Round and Round and Nobody's Fault. So I broke the tie this way. I asked myself which album I would prefer on a road trip. Sweet Emotion, to me, is one of the best road trip songs ever. So when you have the 3 in a row trifecta of Sweet Emotion followed by No More, and then Round and Round, I mean, come on. You can't go wrong with Toys, so it's Toys for me.
It's interesting, Brent, because your 2 favorite songs on each of these records are both maybe among the heaviest songs Aerosmith ever did. Of course, they were never a metal band, but a hard rock band for sure. And Nobody's Fault and Round are 2 of the heaviest Aerosmith songs ever. And as you probably know, the common thread with the 2 are both written by Brad Whitford. Brad Whitford, such an unsung hero in Aerosmith. Previous caller brought it up. I mean, obviously, the entire band, and thank you, Brent, is built around the dynamic of Joe Perry, Steven Tyler, the 2 focal points, the 2 that do all the press. Not even a question about that. But man, do not sleep on Brad Whitford as a guitar player and his contributions as a writer. The fact that he has been backseat for 50 years to Joe Perry is incredible when you think about it. And he's seemingly okay with it. I've talked to him about it. He's not dumb. Everybody knows that every band is built around one or two people as the focal points that do all the press and get all the photos and attention. And of course, Joe and Steve are tremendous dynamic performers in every way. So Aerosmith is smart to recognize that and has made that the marketing pretty much throughout their whole career. But all the other guys have made huge contributions, and Brad, as a player and as a writer, Last Child, another Brad Whitford masterpiece. So yeah, you can't, and it's interesting, the heavier stuff came from Brad back then for sure. I mean, Round and Round, not to be confused with the Rat song, nothing to do with it, but Round and Round from Toys is absolutely metal. I mean, for 1975, that is metal, and it's still heavy. And the same with Nobody's Fault, which again, Testament covered Nobody's Fault. So there you go. Jeff in California, what do you got, Jeff?
Hey, Eddie, thank you for doing this. Hey, so really quick before I get into Aerosmith, since you mentioned John Corabi at the top of the show, I am also reading his book right now. It's a great read. But back in 1994, I saw Motley Crue with John Corabi as their lead singer at the Warfield in San Francisco. It was really sad because they couldn't even fill that place, and it's not a big place. But they sounded amazing, and John sang the Vince Neil songs better than Vince ever did. I've always wanted to say that on the air, so there you go. Because it's true, and I can't wait to hear your interview with John next week. Okay, so Aerosmith, Rocks is my pick. And not only is it the greatest Aerosmith record, but it's the greatest album of all time in the history of music. The album is perfect. It's like 35 minutes long from start to finish. It's the perfect album to fuck to. You get somebody that you're in love with, and you make love with that. You start with Back in the Saddle, you end with Home Tonight, and fill in the blanks. It is perfect for that. That album just oozes sexuality. It's dirty, and it's just, I mean, Toys is a great record, but I think Toys is a little bit more polished than Rocks. And, you know, the cocaine was doing its thing, you know. I mean, they made some great music when they were fucked up. They really, really, really did.
Yeah.
It's the greatest album. It's the Holy Grail. It
is. Thank you, Jeff, for the calling. Rocks is 34 minutes, so if you're gonna have sex to it, I mean, you know, it's a pretty good session there. Jeff is right in the sense that I agree completely. Like, Rocks is my go-to Aerosmith album out of the whole catalog, and of course I love so many of the other records. I really do, and I know them all. But when I gotta go to an Aerosmith record, it is not even hesitation. It's Rocks. If I'm hanging out with friends having some drinks, it's Rocks. I'll never forget a few years ago, I'm in LA for whatever I was there for at the time. And wherever I was staying at the London, which is a really nice hotel, an expensive hotel. They used to always put us there when we were doing that metal show. So maybe that's what I was doing at the time. And this room that I had this outdoor patio off of these sliders. It was a great spot. Clearly I wasn't paying for it. But we were out at the Rainbow or something, or the Whiskey at a show, and I was with some friends, and I remember my friend Brent Woods was with me, and we had a few drinks, we were having too much fun, and we were like, we don't want to stop now, so we had some drinks back at the room. I grabbed 3-4 people, I said, come on, let's go back to my room, I got this cool patio. We walked across Sunset, we went to my room, opened the sliders, it was a beautiful night, we opened up the mini bar, and I put Rocks on my little just on my phone, playing it out of the speakers on the phone on the table. And we all that night just completely, like, we were kids again. This was only a few years ago. We were kids. It was just the greatest. Who was having a couple drinks of something, who was smoking a little something, and everyone was just consumed with the greatness of this record for 34 minutes, top to bottom. It's flawless. And again, Toys is not that far off, but there's something about Rocks. Joel in Maryland. Go ahead, Joel. Joel, you there? Looks like we may have lost Joel. We'll put him on hold, see if he comes back on the line. A lot of Canada checking in on this. Interesting, a quintessential American band. Canada weighing in heavily, which of course we always welcome. Dan is in Toronto. Go ahead, Dan.
Well, how are you doing there, Eddie?
Good, Dan. What's your pick?
My pick would be Rocks, just because it's a heavier album, and I'm not going to say too much because everybody else is saying it for me. The other thing I wanted to say was happy belated birthday.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I got a ton of amazing birthday wishes a couple days ago, and they're still coming in, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Dan, and thanks for listening. 844-686-5863, 844-6-VOLUME. Rocks versus Toys. Make your pick. John in Virginia is up next. Go ahead, John.
Hey, Eddie. J-Lo has 6 more rings than the Dallas Cowboys do the last 20 years, by the way. I saw that online. My friend Tony and I have been talking about this for years, and my personal view is things like Big 10-inch and whatever are just a little bit goofy, like Tyler was allowed to be his goofy self, and then they all got serious and made Rocks. So without a doubt, Rocks is my number one choice.
Yeah, I kind of referenced that before, John, in that stuff like that's where Toys loses me a little bit, like Big 10-inch, and I definitely don't dislike Uncle Salty, but it was never one of my favorites. So if I back those two out, and then you still got a great record. And then the other thing is, and I always say this, you shouldn't penalize success, but I got to be honest. I mean, as great as a song as Walk This Way is, to me, it's so overplayed that the minute I hear it, I'm gone. I mean, I don't, not that it's not great, but I just don't ever need to hear it again because it's so overplayed. So I probably hold that a little bit against the record too, which I shouldn't, because when I first heard it in 75 at 10 years old, it was the coolest thing I ever heard. But now it's kind of like, you're done with it already.
Yeah, but also we used to watch a bootleg of 77 Houston. I don't know if they kept this online, but a lot of the lyrics Tyler just kind of makes up as he goes. So if that's on there, it's hilarious. If not, then I understand them getting rid of it.
Yeah, no, some of it is on there because I did watch that and I did notice it. Thank you, John. Tyler used to do that all the time, whether he was too high to remember the lyrics or was just messing around. But he would absolutely just, to this day, he'll change up lyrics. Whether he's forgetting them or not, he uses a prompter and he'll still change them, or he'll scat them. He'll just ad lib them or whatever. But that's just Tyler. But yeah, that 77 show is still up there, and there's some interesting things in there for sure. We haven't talked to Steve in Tampa in a little bit and get his thoughts on this. Go ahead, Steve.
Hey, brother. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Sure
So
thing.
I started with Toys because that was the first one I heard after Live Bootleg, which is crazy. No More, and now that hit me hard as a kid, impacted me. Toys in the Attic, but now listen to all that, after the rock stuff. I think as an adult, Combination was my number one Aerosmith top 20 record. So now I'm thinking, as a kid up till 15, I loved Toys because that's what I was exposed to after Live Bootleg. But now I think I'm going with all the great tunes like Combination and Nobody's Fault on Rocks. I'm changing my vote.
Wow. Yeah, that's what makes this so difficult, because you can actually swing between the two, and it's very, very, very difficult to lock in. But Steve, will put you down for Rocks. That's your vote so far. Joel, I'm curious. We got about 45 minutes left to go here in the show. You are also taking votes here off the air. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we're keeping a tally of anybody who calls in and then may drop off for whatever reason, doesn't have time to hang around to get their call through. Everybody who does call in will get their vote accounted for. Okay, so do you want to give the tally as to where it's at now? Let's save the off-air tally for the end, but on air, what we're looking at is about 8-3 in favor of Rocks.
Wow. See, there you go. That's the again, I consider my audience for the most part to be pretty hardcore rock. And that would make sense that they would lean towards rocks because for the hardcore, that is the record. Commercially, not even close. I gave that stat earlier. Toys in the Attic has sold more than double in history. But for the connoisseur that truly knows and loves Aerosmith, it is rocks. It is raw. It is heavier. It's dirtier. Yeah. But it's hard. So we'll see how this levels off as we continue at 844-686-5863 on the latest Trunk Nation Throwdown, Rocks versus Toys. We go back to the West Coast. Charlie is somewhere in California joining us right now. Hey, Charlie.
Hey, man. How you doing?
Good. What do you got?
I'm going to go with rocks, and I'll tell you why. I was in a band in the 70s, and I got to see the Rocks tour. And it was in Denver, McNichols Arena. And it was one of those shows that was on. They weren't so messed up, but it was amazing. And all the songs were just awesome, and it was a great show. And the one that they put out on on YouTube is close to what I saw. So that brings back some awesome memories.
Yeah, that is the Rocks tour. Even though they do the song Draw the Line in that show, I think they were doing that song prior to Draw the Line coming out because I believe that's the tail end of the Rocks tour, that 77 show in Houston.
Yeah, it was amazing, man. Rats in the Cellar was awesome. Sick as a Dog just blew my mind. It was so good.
Yeah.
So and I'm going with, go ahead.
You're going Rocks. You're going Rocks then, right?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Thank you, Charlie. Thanks for listening. You know, Charlie also touches on a good point, too, which was a big thing with Aerosmith back in the 70s especially, is that around this period of time, 76, 77, you would go to see Aerosmith, and I don't speak from experience on this because I was too young. I didn't see them until Rockin' a Hard Place, actually. But I have a lot of friends that saw them in the 70s, and this has been well documented. You would go to see them, and you did not know what you were going to get because you could go on certain nights, and it would be a train wreck debacle because they had become super successful coming off of Toys, and with that came all the excesses that are well documented in Aerosmith history in terms of drugs and alcohol and all that. So they would go up on stage, completely annihilated certain members, and it would make for awful shows. Now, sometimes half the audience was as fucked up as the band was, so they didn't know what was going on anyway, and they'd go, oh, fucking great. But for the most part, I have a couple friends that are hardcore Aerosmith fans and a little older than me, and they went to those shows in the 70s, and they saw some really bad shows that they're still mad about to this day because they were just a wreck. So it was a little bit like a roll of the dice when you would go to see them, especially around Rocks. It was hit or miss, given those issues. Here's Joe in Dallas joining us right now. Hey, Joe.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Good, Joe.
All right, so if you could bear with me for a minute, I got a couple of things here. So as far as the Throwdown, I got to say Rocks is probably the better album, but I'm just such a fan and think Sweet Emotion is such a masterpiece.
It is.
It's got to make me fall with Toys.
Well, I'll tell you this, Joe, real quick. I'll tell you this about Sweet Emotion. And this is interesting when I think about it. The top 20s that I've been doing on this show for years now that have become very popular, people may not know this because I doubt there's a ton of people that were listening in the earliest years of the history of this particular show. But the very first top 20 I ever did was Aerosmith. And my number one overall Aerosmith song of all time was Sweet Emotion. So that says a lot too. So that encapsulates everything Aerosmith in that 4.5 minutes.
And then I got a couple of questions for you. One, just an oddity as we're referring to Aerosmith as metal. You personally, because I've had this conversation with some friends, where do you draw the line between metal and like the harder side of rock?
Well, that's a whole. Thank you, Joe, for the call. That's a whole nother conversation and a whole nother thing. So I'm not going to get all that into it here because I don't want to take time away from what we're doing. But I'm happy to discuss that on another show. But I do feel there's a very, very, very big line between metal and hard rock. I feel they are two different, distinctive things, connected but very different. And I feel that one of the problems with metal, too, is that people lazily sometimes put everything under the metal umbrella, everything from Poison and Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses to Slayer and Watain, under the metal umbrella. And they're very different to me. Connected, but different. And and a lot of it is, to me, is in the tone, the aggression, the appearance, the image. I just feel like I can feel that when I see or hear a band, but it's not a perfect science, of course, but that's what I feel. I thought for sure I was bracing because when Joe said he had something else and Joe was from Dallas, because we had some of the listeners had a little fun with the Cowboys. I thought for sure he was going to push back on something against anti-Giants. I was bracing for that. And would have fully deserved it, by the way. And just to be clear, I have no issue at all with the city of Dallas or Texas in general. I love it, as a matter of fact. It's just fun when you're your arch rival in football. I mean, this is what happens now. Starting with football season, I will be I am a psychotically hardcore New York Giants fan my whole life. So as a result, I will root vehemently against Washington, Philly, and Dallas. That's the thing you're supposed to do. As those three fans of those three teams should root vehemently every week against the Giants. That's what you're supposed to do. By the way, Joel, what is Washington's team's name now? The
Commanders?
The former Redskins. What are they called now?
I think they're the Commanders. Is that what
they changed it to?
I think so. They were the Washington football team for a whole year.
No, more than 2 years, I think they were the football team.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Commanders?
They're the Commanders now.
So now I got to worry about rooting against. I got to say how much I dislike the Commanders.
They're still the football team in Washington.
What is the Cleveland baseball team called now?
The Guardians.
Oh, for a minute I thought it was the Washington Guardians. So, all right.
Oh, you just had it. You got them flipped.
I can't. All right. Here's Bob in Illinois. Bob, what's your pick between rocks and toys?
Oh, is it me?
You're up, Bob. Go ahead.
Oh, I feel like I have arrived. I can't believe I'm talking to you.
Well, you made it, Bob.
I watched every one of that metal show, and the throwdowns you did on there, I have a list of those. I don't know how many of them the three of you did. I wrote every single one of them down.
See, on the TV, we only had 2 minutes for like 5 people to do it. Here we got almost 2 hours for the whole country to do it. So what's your pick, Bob?
I was going to say rocks. In fact, I said that to the person, the call screener, but I got to go with toys because 2 of my favorite songs of theirs are Walk This Way and Sweet Emotion. So I got to go with toys.
So you actually changed your pick while you were on hold?
I did. I changed it while I'm on hold.
All right.
Driving, listening to you.
Well, thank you for listening, Bob. I appreciate it very much, and thank you for watching the show back in the day as well.
Thank you, man.
Take care. I got a feeling that, and it feels like we picked up some new people since we moved over to Faction Talk 103. Of course, all our volume people hopefully have come over, but definitely some people maybe didn't, for whatever reason, for 6 years didn't find me. I'm hearing from some of them actually via email. So thank you and welcome. And you got about 6 years to catch up on. So go on the SiriusXM app and punch in Trunk Nation in the search and you'll get caught up on some of it. I don't think it goes back 6 years, does it, Joel?
With your interviews, yeah. You can, Yeah, if we talk about, specific interviews, you mention someone's name, they can, search Trunk Nation and that name, and they'll find it. It's everything's still in the volumes interviews bucket. That's where all the interviews will live for all of eternity.
Wow. All right. Well, if you're taking a little road trip and somebody wants to get caught up, just put Trunk Nation in search and hit that on the app. You'll get caught up. And again, for those that are still listening on 106, where we are still replayed and I believe simulcasted, remember, unfortunately, that is not going to continue long term. That's why we're telling everybody to make sure you come to 103, 3 to 5 Eastern, live every day. That is where the show will live. And if there's a consistent replay after that, as soon as that gets sorted out, I'll certainly let you know. But go to the app for your on-demand listening as well. Here's Kenny in Maryland joining us. Go ahead. Kenny, you're in Silver Springs. That's Maryland, right?
Yes, sir. How you doing, Eddie?
Good, man. Thanks for being here. What's your pick?
Yeah, rocks all day long. It's a soundtrack of my youth. Used to just crank it. My buddy Joel and I would crank side A and side B all day in the summertime. And it's the heaviest, in my opinion, probably the best hard rock album of all time.
Yeah,
It's
and I mean,
sick.
there's
It's sick.
and yeah, and there's it's so influential to so many people. Again, people like Sebastian Bach covered Back in the Saddle, and Axl Rose sang on it with him. I mean, that's the enormity of the impact of this record is just huge. Slash did a recreation of the drawing that's inside of the original Rocks as a kid in high school. And like I said, on the last Aerosmith album, they included Slash's drawing. So the scope of the record, the impact it had, the influence it had, it's flawless. Even though it's not nearly as big commercially as Toys, for the hardcore fans, it's the record. I really wish they'd play it in its entirety one day. It's only 34 minutes. I'd go anywhere to see that.
I agree. And when I got to see Aerosmith and Kiss, I forget what year it was, within 10 years. And they played Get the Let Out, and I lost my shit. I was like sweating. I was like, oh my God, that's like my favorite song on the album. It's just so raw and so heavy, and it every time I hear Rocks, I get chills. Every single time. It's just the sickest hard rock album, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you, Kenny. I appreciate your thoughts. And I mean, for me, Sick as a Dog, Licking a Promise, Nobody's Fault, and again, that ballad, Home Tonight, that ends the record. It can't just as great as a way to end a record ever. What an incredible vocal, incredible song. It's amazing to me that did not become a huge hit song. And you want to talk about losing your mind. When I saw Aerosmith last in Vegas, the residency a few years ago, Tyler comes out to do the beginning of Dream On, and before he does that, he'll noodle a little on the piano and play a few different things. And he played a little bit. One night when I saw him, he played a little bit of a song called Mia, which is named after his daughter, one of his daughters, who I actually know. And that's on the super underrated Night in the Ruts record. And I lost my mind. Nobody else knew what the hell it was, but I lost my mind. Then he went into a little bit of the intro to Home Tonight, lost my mind, and then went into the beginning of Dream On, and then everybody else lost their mind. So for about 3 minutes, there was this big idiot standing in the middle of the venue losing my shit while everyone looked at me. And then, of course, he goes into the beginning of Dream On, and then, the other 5,000 people lose their shit. But, that's a good problem to have when you got a gajillion hits, but you still throw some nuggets in there for the hardcore fans. Here's Joe in Philly with his pick on this throwdown between Toys and Rocks from Aerosmith. What do you got, Joe?
I got Go Birds.
Yeah, I knew that was coming when you said Philly. You're on my hit list too, Joe. So you're not going to escape this one. But yeah, you're totally welcome to fire back. That's what being a fan is.
But being from Philly, I was actually at both Aerosmith shows. I was in high school when Tyler got hit with the bottle, and the other incident with the M80. I saw both of them. Those incidents at the Spectrum.
Oh wow!
I'm going with Rocks all the way.
But my question, because you mentioned that, and it's I'd be interested to see the stats, that Toys way outsold Rocks. My question is, how many of those sales came after Aerosmith did it with Run DMC? So I'd like to know how close sales were between Rocks and Toys in the Attic before Aerosmith redid Walk This Way with Run DMC.
I don't think, Joe, that would have been a big factor, only because the version of Walk This Way with Run DMC would have been the people who were into that and saw that video and all of that. I would think that they would want that version of it. Like, I'm sure it brought new attention to the song, but that song was still always huge leading into Run DMC. And then if people liked that version, I would think that they would go out and want to buy that version versus the original. I don't know if that would necessarily push Toys that much, maybe to some degree, but not hugely.
Okay. That's just what came to my mind when you mentioned about how many more albums it sold.
Yeah.
And that's what basically put Aerosmith back on the map, too.
Yeah, no question.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no question. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate the call. Again, Philly, great city. Love the people of Philly. But we are arch enemies when it comes to football. But Joe brings up a good point. Nothing at all. Without question, the Run DMC reunion there with Aerosmith was a huge moment and huge song and huge version. But I don't feel like that would have caused people to run out and want to go buy Toys in the Attic who had not. Because it's not like Walk This Way was an obscure song. I mean, leading into that, when that happened in like 84, 85, leading into that, I mean, Walk This Way was still on classic rock radio every friggin' day. Remember, Sweet Emotion got a re-release in the 80s as well. They did a remix of it, and they did a new video for it, I think for a greatest hits record, and that got a whole second wave. That's also interesting as we break this down. That never happened, to my knowledge, on anything on Rocks. Now, I mentioned on Rocks, Back in the Saddle's been covered. Nobody's Fault's been covered. The stuff's been covered on that record. But both Walk This Way, the version with Run DMC, and a remix of Sweet Emotion, complete with a brand new video at the time, both got a whole second life in the mid-'80s during the MTV era. But they were both done to promote those versions of the song, so I don't necessarily think it would have really pushed Toys that much. That's my logic, at least, I think it would make sense. All right, final break, and then when we come back, we'll go till just before the top of the hour with some more calls. So much fun to break this down and analyze this and get different thoughts and different stories and memories. Fireworks going off at Aerosmith shows. You hear that on live bootlegs. It's just crazy when you think about that, which thankfully is not something that happens anymore at concerts, but did a lot in the 70s. Listen to the heaviness of Round and Round, for God's sakes. We'll be right back. We'll squeeze in some more calls here. And again, we've got a tally of people who've called in off the air. I'm sure this will bleed in tomorrow a little bit. Maybe I'll also put up a poll on my Twitter if you don't get through here on the air before we wrap today. Perfect to have Nugent on tomorrow because, again, he's got a ton of history with Aerosmith, so maybe I'll get a few thoughts from him. And Friday, of course, is our Free-for-All Friday. Again, live every day. 3 to 5 Eastern on Faction Talk 103. Talking rock with you, Trunk Nation. Thank you for being here, and this has been a fun throwdown so far. I feel like it's I expected Rocks to win just because of the nature of the truly educated, astute, smart audience the Trunk Nation listener is. It's the hardcore rock fan. But I didn't expect it by this margin, which I think is pretty substantial, but we'll get some stats from Joel before we wrap it. Let's get a few more calls in. Here's Mike in New York, who is next up. Hey, Mike, go ahead.
Eddie, what's going on, man? How are you?
Good, Mike.
I was on the Metal Edge podcast with Izzy and Paul Gargano doing this exact track by track with Stephen Pearcy about 7 months ago, right before Christmas.
Who's a huge Aerosmith fan?
Yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, it came out 5/4 Toys.
But the way those guys do it, Mike, because I've done that with them,
track.
they A/B the two tracks, which you can do here too, because each record has 9 tracks. So it's a little different approach, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, no, I was on with them doing it, so that's how I know. But I think I worked it out, just giving each song a rating, and I came out with Toys like percentage points, like 1/10 of a point higher than Rock. So I mean, for me, it was 6 of one, half does the other. But I'll go Toys here.
All right. Well, Mike balances it out a little bit. Thank you, Mike, putting a vote in there for Toys in the Attic. 844-686-5863. Your pick between Toys and Rocks. Here's Kenny in Chicago. Go ahead, Kenny.
Hey, Ed. First time, long time.
Thank you, Kenny. Welcome.
Hey, I'm going to go with Rocks. First of all, Combination to me is the best Aerosmith song ever, in my opinion.
Wow.
And
well, Kenny,
was crazy.
Kenny, your phone was dropping out there for a second. Finish your thought. I couldn't hear you.
Yeah, I was when that album came out, I was at a basement party. First time I heard the song at the end of Last Child, when the sirens go off, I thought the police were coming in. I ran out. So, Rock,
yeah, there is.
Look forward to seeing you. Huh?
You know, what were you saying, Kenny? Go ahead.
No, I'm just finishing up there. Look forward to seeing you when you come this way in September.
Oh, yeah. I look forward to that, too. I haven't been in that area in a really long time. I'm going to be at a place called Reps Place for the Reps Fest, REPS, and that's in Rolling Meadows. And I'm going to be there on September 24th. So look forward to meeting you, Kenny. Thank you. I'll see you there.
Look forward to it. We'll show you a good time, Ed.
Thank you, Kenny. Appreciate that. Kenny brings up another thing, too. There's that segue between Last Child into Rats in the Cellar. There's those sirens, and it just segues into it. I mean, that's just awesome as well. And a number of people have brought up too. It is a great album to party to. It really is. It's just, I mean, Aerosmith was whacked out of their gourd when they did it, and it makes you want to have a couple of drinks at the very least when you crank it up. It's just a great record to have some beers to, or whatever your thing is, and listen to it. Just puts you in that zone. Jason in Kentucky. Go ahead, Jason.
Hey, Eddie, thanks for taking my call. This is the best Throwdown. These are the 2 best Aerosmith records. I love Toys. You got Round and Round, No More, No More, Adam's Apple, and Uncle Salty, my favorites. But when I discovered Rocks, my sister left home when she was 18. I was that kid, like from the Almost Famous movie, and I caught her record collection. And Rocks is the record that made me love rock and roll. Last Child is the first song that really caught me. Combination is insane. Brad Whitford's guitar on Nobody's Fault is just ridiculous. And I did not hear another record like Rocks until Appetite came out. And I'll tell you a funny story. When I was in 7th grade, I was trying to avoid getting my ass kicked at school and forgot to do my homework for music class. Our assignment was to write lyrics to a song. I didn't do my homework, so I jotted down the lyrics to Last Child at the last second, turned it in. The teacher gave it a C-. I give it an A+.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it. And hope you're okay there in Kentucky. I know there's some bad flooding there. So my best to anybody in that part of the country. And Jason brings up a great point too, which I don't know if I think is pretty kind of spot on. I mean, this record really, and you could probably talk to some of the Aerosmith guys about this. We know where Slash lands on it, and we know that Axl covered a song on it. But this record could have very well been a blueprint for Appetite for Destruction. I mean, it really could have been, and probably was, because they all loved the record. And Jason brought up a point that this was the most impactful, influential hard rock record since Appetite came out, which of course wasn't for 11 years later. But Rocks is that influential, that hard hitting. Here's another Jason, this one in Pennsylvania. Go ahead, Jason.
Hey, how you doing today?
Good, man. Go ahead with your pick.
My pick's going to be the Rocks.
You going with Rocks? Any reason, or you just find it to be the better record?
It's the better record. My dad had it when I was coming up, and he played me the last child and back in the saddle, and I thought it was pretty awesome.
And it's still awesome. That's the crazy thing about it, is when you listen to this record, you listen to Rocks, it's still as powerful as it was even back 45 years ago. It's crazy. Right?
And just one more thing I got to say, go Eagles and go Yankees.
Oh, man. You give me a double whammy there, Jason. I'm not worried about the Yankees. I only have to worry about the Yankees if we get to the World Series. And if they get to the World Series. Otherwise, the Yankees are completely irrelevant to me beyond the fact that they're in the same city. I will admit, as a lifelong Mets fan, it is unbelievably annoying that they are also good at the same time, because they've been consistently good for decades, and now I've got to share the spotlight with them. Although they've been tanking lately, right, Joel?
Today is day one of the Mets leading the Yankees in overall records, so you should be, ringing that bell today.
Didn't they go? Joel and I. This is where Joel and I split.
Fan.
Joel's a Yankees fan. I'm a Mets fan, but we're both Giants fans in football. But Joel, didn't the Yankees? Because I don't follow any other team in baseball but the Mets. Like, if the Mets aren't in it, I'll watch anybody play football, but
no, with 162
only watch the Mets.
Games,
yeah, 160.
There's too many.
But
no, of course
didn't
not.
they just drop like 10 games in a row or something, the Yankees?
7 out of 8. Yeah, they're not doing so good. They're in Seattle right now, and they just lost again last night, 1-0 in 13 innings. That's how bad it's gotten for them.
Oh, all right. Great time of year if you're a sports fan, though. If you're, especially if your team is good. Like I said, I haven't had much to crow about in baseball at this time of year for a long time, so I'm going to savor it. My first ever pro sports event ever, 1974, 10 years old. My dad took me to a Mets game. So that's my allegiance there. And shortly after, my first football game was a Giants game, so that's my allegiance there. And that'll be till I hit the grave. I never waver. I hate front runners. So I'm going to enjoy having football and meaningful baseball to watch, hopefully into October. And hopefully the Giants are meaningful after the first quarter of the season. If they get out of the gate 0-4 again or something, and it's going to really be brutal. It won't be so much fun for me, but we'll see. Let's go to Scott in Cleveland. What's going on, Scott?
Hey, man, how are you?
What do you got? What's your pick?
So I'm leaning toward Toys in the Attic, and I got to tell you why. When I was growing up, I was born in '62, so those albums came out in '75, '76, something like that. Toys was first, and it was huge. And Rocks, don't get me wrong, is no slouch. But I got to tell you, I went and saw them in concert at a World Series of Rock with Ted Nugent on the bill, and they came out and opened with Back in the Saddle, and it was incredible. That build-up, and then Steven screaming, the crowd just jumped onto their feet. Now that's also the night, if you can maybe give credence to this story about the spilt milk behind the backstage, and the band kind of broke up right after that show in Cleveland. It was the night at the Ruts tour, I think.
Well, there is a story, and it might be in Joe Perry's book or Steven Tyler's book, I don't remember, but that they literally broke up or got in a huge fight, literally over spilt milk. That somebody was drinking milk and somebody threw something, and like one of their girlfriends or something was drinking milk and somebody knocked it over, and they were already at each other's throats, and then that would just sent them over the edge. I do recall reading a story like that in one of their books, but I don't remember the details.
Yeah, I had read that it happened after the Cleveland concert in '79, and another guys kind of they were boozing pretty hard and heavy, and I'm sure that didn't add to it. But then it looked like they got their shit together, and they had 2 careers. Honestly, they came out with Permanent Vacation, Pump, Get a Grip, and those were all solid albums, right? A whole other decade of great music to come out with after that first decade in the 70s of great music. I really think they're just a huge American rock band.
Yeah, thank you, Scott, for the call. And I touched on that earlier, and I touched on that when I told that story about me hosting a show with them in South America not long ago, like probably 10 years ago. Long ago, but not like 30 years ago. But the thing is you're spot on. I don't know, and I don't know if I can really think of any band off the top of my head who had that kind of dual career thing, where you had the Build first record, 73, Build into Toys, 75, Rock, 76, one of the biggest bands in the world. Drugs really take over 77, 78. The wheels come off. Joe leaves. Brad leaves. They basically almost get reduced to a club act. People cash in. They're done. Write them off. And then, like, nobody could have saw it coming. 85, 86 rolls around and Run DMC and Permanent Vacation and Dude Looks Like a Lady and this whole other wave and the whole MTV thing and everything. And it was a whole different audience. There were people like me who were still there from back in the day, but it was a whole nother world that maybe only vaguely knew about Aerosmith. And that's why when you go see them live to this day, I mean, they've got to work both worlds. You're going to get a heavy dose of that mid-'80s to late 80s stuff. Even if you're like me, where all you'd rather hear is Rocks and Toys, they got to, the vast majority of their audience is there to hear Dude Looks Like a Lady and Living on the Edge and Angel and What It Takes. And I'm not saying those aren't great songs. They are, but it's just a different era. But it's enormously huge era. So I don't know of many bands that have sold millions of records in the 70s and then did it again in a total reinvention in the mid to late 80s, whether you like it or not. I don't want to miss the things. I think a #1 song. It's crazy. And yeah, I would be all about and all in about just hearing the first, 6 records, but. And one other note, and I'll tell you this, and I've said it before. Some of my favorite Aerosmith stuff is in that period where they were written off. Kings and Queens on Draw the Line is one of my favorite all-time songs. And then you get into Night in the Ruts, I think is an enormously underrated record. Chiquita, No Surprise. That record's incredible. Maybe my second favorite overall Aerosmith record, believe it or not, is Night in the Ruts. And I also love the record without Joe and Brad. Rockin' a Hard Place, tremendous record. Bitches Brew, Lightning Strikes. And I also love Done with Mirrors, the reunion record. So it's that period where they were written off and not that commercially successful, to me, whatever was going on has some phenomenal music on it that to this day is still among my go-to in their catalog. Most of it never gets played, but it's amazing to me. Couple more quick ones, and then we'll get a tally from Joel. How much time I got, Joel? Can I get another quick call or two?
You can take about one more quick call.
Let's go to Henry in California. He's been waiting a little bit. Henry, go ahead.
Hey, Eddie. Happy belated birthday, brother.
Thank you, Henry.
Hey,
what's your pick?
I got it's so close, but I'm gonna go with Toys in the Attic. I got them both when I was in high school. I had just seen Kiss and Cheap Trick, my first concert. So I ordered a bunch of stuff from Columbia House, and two of my 8 tracks that I got in were Toys in the Attic and Rocks, and I think I wore them both out. But the songs like Round and Round, dude, I used to play them over and over and over and over, stuff you didn't hear on the radio. And I just, to this day, I love both those albums, but Toys in the Attic, dude, it's an awesome album.
Got it. Thank you, Henry. I appreciate that. Vinny in Jersey, real quick, give me one.
Yeah, first-time caller. Thanks, Ed.
Great show. Love show. Got to go with Rocks all day long.
Thank you, Vinny. I appreciate it. Just short on time. Joel, what's the tally?
Okay, on air, pretty reflective of what we had on the phones. 15-7 Rocks on air, 21-11 for our total tally.
So what we took off air brings it to 21-11, 15-7. So really double. I mean, double overall on either count going towards going for Rocks. Not surprising. That's pretty much the results I would have expected from my listeners. Again, Toys in the Attic is a tremendous record. But when you really, really want quintessential Aerosmith, even though it might not have the hits and the songs you hear on the radio nonstop, still, my audience for the most part with me, Rocks is the quintessential, not only the quintessential Aerosmith album, but maybe one of the certainly quintessential hard rock albums ever created, and still to this day holds up remarkably well. I thank you all for your calls. I am sorry if I didn't get to you. If you want to chime in a little bit on this, we are welcome. We will welcome you in the next couple of days with your calls, or of course, you can always call in about anything you want in the world of rock. Keep an eye on my Twitter, maybe a little bit later on, at Eddie Trunk. I'll put a poll up there as well. We'll get some Twitter people and some social media people to chime in and get their thoughts, and I will read that on the air tomorrow as well.